Right at the very beginning of The Treasure Inside, before the chapters even start, you meet two sentences that quietly explain how to read the rest of the book. They're printed up front exactly like this. Where your pleasure is, there is your treasure. Where your treasure, there your heart. Where your heart, there your happiness. St. Augustine. And the only joy in the world is to begin. Cesare Pavese. They don't tell you where to dig. They tell you how to move. Tonight we'll put each line next to the life that wrote it and show how those lives become a method for reading clues without getting lost. Start with Augustine. He lived in the late Roman world, born in North Africa in the year 354, dying in 430 as the empire fractured. He became Bishop of Hippo and wrote the kinds of books that keep showing up when people argue about conscience and order. Confessions, City of God, and, for our purpose, a smaller but surgical work called De Musica. The line you just heard, where your pleasure is, there is your treasure. Where your treasure, there your heart. Where your heart, there your happiness, is the spine of his thought. He's mapping the current inside a person. Delight pulls treasure closer. Treasure attracts the heart. And wherever the heart finally rests, you get either blessedness or misery. Augustine isn't lecturing about taste. He's calibrating a compass. Under pressure, your loves steer you whether you admit it or not. In a treasure hunt, that sentence is a rule you can keep in your pocket. If you train your delight toward evidence over echo, toward objects, schedules, and constraints that don't care what you want, you'll make better choices when a loud coincidence tries to lead you by the nose. That's why Augustine survives across centuries. 1,500 years later, an American pastor writes a letter from a jail cell and cites him by name. An unjust law is no law at all. To draw a moral line you can test without a crowd's approval. The point isn't theology class. It's that Augustine gives you a durable way to judge your own next step when the room gets noisy. Now, Pavese. Cesare Pavese lived from 1908 to 1950 and worked in Turin's publishing world as a novelist, poet, editor, and translator. He helped ferry modern American literature into Italy, voices like Faulkner's and Melville's, and treated translation like a bridge, not a trophy. His fiction keeps circling exile and return. The shock of realizing that memory edits places and the ground refuses to cooperate with what you remember. The line your book prints, "The only joy in the world is to begin," comes from his diary, a notebook voice that speaks with the force of a working rule. Start. Beginning isn't a mood. It's a method for escaping paralysis and letting the world answer you back. For a hunt, that matters. You don't learn a map by staring at it. You learn it by taking the first true step, even if it feels small, and letting that step change what the second step is. Put those two lines together, and the opening of The Treasure Inside reads like a contract. Augustine says, your loves will steer you. Pavese says joy lives in the first honest step. The effect is practical. At every location, at every puzzle, you ask two questions. 1. What am I being pulled to love here? The fast, flashy, explain-it-all story? Or the quiet handle I can test? 2. What is the right beginning? What is the smallest, most faithful move that turns vague interest into evidence? If you can answer those two questions over and over, the hunt stops feeling like rumor and starts feeling like literacy. Let's show how the lines work on the ground. Take Augustine's chain, pleasure, treasure, heart, happiness, and map it to a clue. Pleasure is attention. Treasure is the thing you keep choosing. Heart is the place your choices return to. Happiness is the quality of the outcome. If a signboard tempts you with a dramatic myth, while a maintenance log sits nearby with boring numbers, Augustine asks, which one do you secretly love more? If your delight is in drama, you'll make the myth do too much work. If your delight is in things that can be checked, you'll give the ledger a chance to talk. 9 out of 10 times, the ledger will tell you exactly where to stand, when to stand there, and what else had to be true at that hour. That is treasure in Augustinian terms. Not gold, but the habit of loving what lasts when a stranger audits your solve. Now Pavese's sentence, The only joy in the world is to begin, turned into a field rule. Beginning means you pick a definite move that the location can either confirm or deny. In practice, that might mean reading the first letters of each line on a plaque to see if an acrostic appears. It might mean standing at the first numbered post on a trail instead of the prettiest overlook. It might mean starting your count from the first sunrise time on a tide board rather than your favorite round number. Pavese's point is that joy belongs to people who act into the world and let the world answer, who stop rehearsing and start testing. In a book built for American soil, that could be as simple as asking a watcher's question first. What do locals begin with here? The answer is almost always a tool, a punch used on paper tickets, a rubber doorstop, a volunteer badge, a clipboard with the same 3 boxes every time. If you begin where they begin, you'll read the place correctly on your first try more often than not. The 2 sentences also warn you away from bad habits. Augustine warns you against loving the feeling of being clever more than the work of being right. Pavese warns you against waiting for perfect certainty before you take a step. Together they say, be honest and get moving. If your delight is honest and your beginning is real, your heart will keep returning to the kind of treasure that doesn't collapse when a new fact arrives. Give each man a little more color so their names carry weight as you listen. Augustine grew up a talker, trained in rhetoric, magnetic to crowds, and then he turned that fervor toward asking what kinds of love build a life that can stand up under loss. He liked numbers not because they are tidy but because number and rhythm help you sense order when your senses feel shook. He believed attention could be healed the way a broken limb can be set, slowly, by aligning it to something straight. When he lists pleasure, treasure, heart, happiness, he's inviting you to notice your own steering wheel. In a puzzle, you can hear the checklist in his cadence. Delight. What am I actually drawn to? Treasure. What am I repeatedly picking? Heart. What do my choices say I am loyal to? Happiness. What kind of ending does this loyalty produce? Keep that cadence in your head, and you will catch yourself before you choose speed over truth. Pavese, by contrast, writes with the fatigue of someone who has stared at the blank page long enough to know the only cure is the first mark. His diary line doesn't glamorize starting. It tells you that beginning is the condition for all the other good things: learning, revising, returning, finishing. In his novels, people come home and discover that home has moved under their feet. The land looks the same, but the stories are different because they have changed. That's why to begin fits a hunt. You think you know a park, a pier, a festival ground, a hallway, but begin with the locals' first move and you will find that the place rearranges itself without anyone touching the furniture. There are American echoes right under your feet. Augustine's words show up in the mouth of Martin Luther King Jr., not as a quote to sound wise, but as a tool for deciding a next step under pressure. That means Augustine belongs in any American story about judging what's right when the room disagrees. Pavese's career is one of the reasons mid-century American writing felt present and real to readers an ocean away, and why, when those readers wrote back, their pages carried some of our dust. That bridge matters here because the treasure inside is a hunt meant to breathe American air. A Pavese line at the start is a quiet way of saying, these pages believe in starting where you stand. You can even let the quotes set your method for specific puzzle moves. Augustine's line comes from De Musica, Book 6, Section 11. Think 6-11 as a mental nudge to look for a schedule or a clock whenever you're stuck. Ask what time made this scene possible. Ask what constraint the hour imposes. Ask what the heart of the space is at that time of day. The hub everybody orbits whether they like it or not. That's often where the next move lives. In the place the day itself treasures. Pavese's begin can be literal. Try first letters only. Try the first instance of a repeated object. Try the first number on every line of a posted list. If there are 10 benches, which one is bench 1? If there's a row of flags, which one starts the sequence? If there's a trail map, where is the star that says, "You are here"? And what does the legend tell you to do first? The joy is not in guessing right. The joy is in beginning in a way the place can answer. If you zoom back out, the two sentences turn a scary feeling, being off balance, into an asset. Augustine tells you what to aim your attention at while you wobble. Pavese tells you to start anyway. Add them together and the wobble becomes a teacher. When you feel disoriented, you are exactly where you can learn the most in the shortest time, if your delight is honest and your beginning is real. So when you hear these two lines at the very start of The Treasure Inside, hear them as instructions. When a clue tempts you to chase the flash, ask Augustine's question. What do I really love in this moment? And will that love still look wise if someone checks my work? When a clue tempts you to wait until you know everything, obey Pavese. Begin. Make the smallest true move the place can confirm. Let that move change what the second move is. If you practice those two habits, you'll feel the hunt change shape under your hands. It will feel less like rumor and more like reading. One last clarity note before we close. I'm not asking you to memorize author dates or turn a hunt into homework. I'm asking you to borrow the best rule each line offers. From Augustine. Your loves steer you, so love what lasts. From Pavese. Joy lives in beginning, so start where you stand. Put those together in the first pages of this book, stop being decoration, and become a tool you can use at every stop. That tool doesn't just help you solve, it helps you walk through a new place without pretending it's the old one. In short, let delight choose evidence over echo, and let joy choose the first true step over the perfect plan. If you do those two things, this hunt will give you more than answers. It will teach you how to see.